Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another video on this daily upload streak. Obviously, as you can tell by the title, and as you can tell what you're looking at, this is going to be a Survivor tier list. This one might be a little bit more uniform, unlike my killer one. I know my killer one people definitely disagreed with, but yeah, this one might be a little bit more correct just because survivors aren't as difficult to rank, and in terms of they're pretty simple. Like they just have their perks and do what they do. None of them really have any special abilities. So yeah, it's this one's purely based off perks, whereas the killer one was everything, obviously ability and perks. Yeah, let's get straight into it. Dwight, I'd say Dwight is okay. I'd put him B tier. Maybe a little bit, maybe A tier, because he has Bond, which is probably top three Survivor aura reading perks for like seeing your teammates. He has Prove Thyself, which is decent. He has Leader, which is a little below mid. So he's pretty solid. He's just not like anything crazy. So I think A tier is a good spot for him because Dwight is very good. Not very good, but he's good. But he's not like super good. Like he's not at the top. Next we have Meg, who's S tier. Um, Meg is pretty simple. Sprint Burst can be the best perk in the game if you know how to use it properly, and even if you don't know how to use it properly, it's still really good. So yeah, quick and quiet as well is good with the vaults and stuff, and adrenaline is also pretty good for most of the time. It doesn't work every time, but yeah, she's still good. So S tier is where she'll be. Next we have Claudette, who has self care, empathy, and botany knowledge. Now I'll put her B tier just because self care is not really good. Just bring a med kit, kind of a pointless perk. Empathy's not bad. It's a pretty good aura reading perk if you want to see your teammates. And botany knowledge is pretty decent too if you want to have those quick heal speeds. She's very simple, not much to say there. Also, she can hide in bushes pretty well. But so can a few other characters. She's pretty good just because she has like a dark clothes option to hide in the bushes. Similar with Nicolas Cage, he has dark clothes, so it's pretty easy for him to hide in bushes. But we'll get to that later, and that's not a big part of the game, so it's not really going into it, but it does help. All right, next we have Jake. Jake, I would probably put B tier as well behind Claudette. He's okay. Sabo's okay. Iron Will's okay. Calm Spirit's okay. Like his perks are just pretty situational. And obviously Sabo, you need a full build for that. But that can be good. Iron Will, it's okay, but do you really need it that much? I mean, it really depends. I guess if you're running like No Mither or something, but even then, you probably don't need that. Calm Spirit as well, not really all that great. They're very situational. Sabo's probably his best in my opinion. But yeah, B tier is pretty solid because they can all be used. Like he doesn't have any useless perks. They're just situational and kind of mid. All right, next we have Nia, who does have a pretty useless perk in Streetwise. That perk's pretty bad. I believe it like I don't even remember for sure what it does, but it's not good because I can't. I believe it has something to do with items, but I don't want to be wrong, so I'm not gonna say it. Balance landing is all right. It's a decent exhaustion perk, but it really depends on the map you're on. And urban evasion is not that great either. So yeah, I'd put Nia probably B tier just ahead of Jake. Because her balance landing is good if you have a good map for it. And there's some maps where I don't even think you can use balance landing, and that would really hurt that. But it's actually pretty decent. Urban Evasion's really not that good, but it can still be used. And then Streetwise is terrible, so I'd put her there. She's similar to Jake's. Urban would be situational, and balance is normally pretty good, but it's still a little bit situational. And her other perk is pretty bad. I think she's ahead of Jake though, because just having an exhaustion perk is better than not. So yeah, I'd probably put her there. I could see them being swapped, and I could see people arguing her for C tier, but I think she's B tier. She's pretty noob friendly too. So yeah. Next we have Lori, who used to be the best survivor in the game at one point, and that is when I picked up the game and I bought Lori. Man, I'll tell you the times I had. I'm not gonna get into that, but I love Lori. It's my pretty much who I put all my perks on and stuff. But Yeah, right now she is probably F tier. Um, maybe C tier just because of DS, because I believe DS got reworked again. It says 5 second stun time when you use it, but even still, it's so much worse than what it used to be. You get to only use it once now, which I know that's been in the game for a long time. Some people probably don't even know what old DS was like. Object is still it. Object used to be really good. Now it's just kind of eh. It's situational too, in my opinion. Because if it's a stealth killer, I don't believe unless they changed it, I don't believe you could see their aura and they can see you, and that's not very good. Yeah, I would probably say F tier. And Soul Survivor's useless. It's a trash perk. Don't even need to go over that. Yeah, Object is weird though because they keep changing it and it's just not good. And DS as well is just not that viable anymore. I'd put her F tier, honestly, and it sucks for me to say that because asked me like 3 4 years ago she'd be S tier. I mean she was so good, but it's just not like that anymore. All right, next we have Ace, who is F tier as well. Definitely worse than Lori. All of his perks are like luck based, and that's just terrible. Not even gonna sit here and go over like what they all do, but they're all luck perks, and luck perks are trash for the most part, and his are no exception. So yeah, under Lori F tier, that's pretty easy for me. Next we have Bill, who has Unbreakable. No, what is it? No Man Left Behind. Is that what it is? Where you can see the hatch. And what is this other one? Um, I can't think of it, but Unbreakable. I'd probably put him ahead of Nia, honestly. The Unbreakable is situational, but it is very, very strong. The No Man Left Behind is not very good. His other perk, I can't. Oh, Borrowed Time. I don't. Borrowed Time isn't really needed anymore, but it's still not bad. I don't know why you'd ever bring it though, but yeah, it's not bad. So I'd probably put him there because Borrowed Time is all right. Not very situational. Unbreakable is situational, but if you get it, if you actually get to use it, it's pretty strong. And then, yeah, No Man Left Behind is not that good, but you know, who knows? But yeah, the Unbreakable alone probably puts him ahead of Nia for me. All right, next we have Fang Min, who probably A tier. I know I might have to go back and move people up because it's different than the killer one. I kind of know where everybody was going to be before that even started. This one is kind of difficult because Fang Min has good perks, but is she S tier? Who knows? She might. She's probably a top 10 survivor, so does that put her? I don't know. But let me explain her perks. Obviously, she has Technician, which is easily her worst perk. Is if you miss a skill check, it makes no noise. Just don't miss the skill check. Light, very good exhaustion perk. There's windows on every single map, so you could just vault a window and boom, you get a speed boost, which is great. And then you have Alert, which is a pretty good aura reading perk. So yeah, I'd put her just above the white in my. Our next we have David, who has what is it? The one where they're hugging each other. I don't remember what it's called. It's like No One Left Behind, and I don't know. His and Bill's confuse me. But he also has No Mither, which is not good at all, and he has Dead Hard, which is so for me. I'm gonna put him C tier. The reason why I have him like above Lori and Ace is because of Dead Hard. Like Dead Hard is not what it used to be at all, but you still can get use out of it, in my opinion. But it is pretty difficult, and it takes a lot more skill to use it now. And Dead Hard's always been one of those perks that's been like, is it gonna work? Is it not? Exhausted on the ground, BS. Like, I mean, it's a lot better now, but it's every now and then you will use it and be like, well, why didn't it go off or something like that? So yeah. And then his other perk, I believe, allows healing. It's like healing bonuses and stuff. So it's all right. Not that good, not that strong anymore. At one point, Dead Hard was probably the best perk in the game, but it has fallen very hard. All right, next we have Quentin, who is easily F tier. Actually, I'd put him ahead of Ace, honestly. Quentin is very bad. He doesn't have any perks that are good, but the reason why I put him ahead of Ace is because at least you know what you're getting from his perks. Like Pharmacy, you know you're going to get a med kit at least, so then you could heal yourself. And then he has, I forgot what he has Vigil as well, which is an aura reading perk, I believe, and it is not very good. And I can't even remember his other perk. His perks are really bad. No reason to run any of them. Why run pharmacy when you can run a med kit? But hey, maybe you're running something else and you're like, okay, well maybe I need a med kit, but that's still dumb, but still better than Ace because not luck perks. So yeah. All right, next we have Tap, who used to be he's been F tier for like as long as I can remember, but he's actually a lot better now. Tenacity's okay, especially paired with like Unbreakable or something like that, where you could pick yourself up, or like Plot Twist. Um, Detective's Hunch is trash. That perk is really bad. And then you have Stakeout, which yeah, I believe Stakeout. Maybe I got Detective's Hunch and Stakeout confused, but I believe it's Hunch that's trash. And Stakeout is actually really good now. Not by itself, but if you pair it with Hyper Focus, which we'll get to later, it is really, really strong for gen builds and stuff. So I'd probably put them. Let's see. I'd probably put Tap. Oh, I'd probably just put him above David because Stakeout's not really that useful unless if you are running hyper focus. So yeah, you do kind of need hyper focus for that, and it is essential if you want to run that build. But by itself, it's not that good. So if you don't have hyper focus and don't feel like paying $5 for that character, or you haven't got it in the Shrine of Secrets, then yeah, not that good. Tenacity would be the only thing you could probably get out of him that's somewhat useful, and that's not all that great. So I'm gonna leave him C tier, but keep in mind that Stakeout is a good perk if you pair it with Hyper Focus. But other than that, it's not that useful. All right, next we have Kate, who, in my opinion, is A tier. I think she's probably below Dwight though. Windows of Opportunity is so useful whether you're new to the game or you've been playing for years. It just helps you know what's the closest like palette or window to you, so you can continue looping. Really, really solid perk. Honestly, it's just very helpful. Now, obviously, if you're like have thousands of hours on the game, you know where every loop is and all the spawns and stuff, then yeah, you probably don't need it. But that's few and far between. So yeah, very simple. Dance with Me, I believe, is it's something to do with scratch marks, like when you vault or something like that. That one's not really that good, but it's not terrible. It's not useless, but not really that useful either. And then she has Boil Over, which is pretty good actually. You wiggle 30% quicker, and they move further. Or it might not be 30, but you wiggle quicker, and they move side to side more, so they get caught on stuff. And if they drop from a height, it has 33%. It's really helpful when trying to wiggle out of situations. So she has two pretty solid perks you can use at any time. And then one that's not so great. All right, next we have Adam. Adam is not that good, if I remember, because Autodidact is okay, but it is kind of situational almost, and not situational as in like what's going on in the game, but if you get skill checks while healing. Because if you do, then yeah, it's great. If you can get it stacked up all the way, then you can finish healing in like one skill check, right? But if you don't get skill checks and maybe it's towards the end of the game, then you start getting some and the healing just keeps regressing and regressing, it can hurt you. So it's a hit or miss perk. I'd say more often times than not, it does work out when I use it. But yeah, and then he has Deliverance, which it's okay. It's also, you just have to be lucky and not be the first one to be hooked, and you have to go and hook them. So I would say it's decent. And his other perk, I cannot remember what it does for life of me. It must not be that great. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, I cannot remember what his other perk does. Adam, I'd probably put ahead of Bill, just because both situational with Unbreakable and Autodidact, but Autodidact for me at least more times than not works, and Deliverance over what was it? Perk? Deliverance over Borrowed Time. It helps a lot more when you're playing solo and stuff. So yeah, I would have him just over Bill. Those perks aren't anything too strong because if you have good teammates, you don't really need Deliverance. And Autodidact is mainly just to help, but it can also hurt. So I'd put him there, but he's still pretty solid, I would say, but just not anything great. Jeff, his only good perk is Distortion, and honestly, I think that's gonna land him right there because his other two perks are not good at all. One of them is if you get unhooked, The hook breaks, which is kind of pointless with guaranteed borrowed time now because it's not like he can down you and then put you back on the hook. If they're tunneling and if you just sit there and take it, I mean, I guess you could, but I don't really think it's all that great. Now, distortion is pretty good. It blocks from aura reading from the killer, and especially with how many killers like to run that stuff, like Lethal Pursuer, you won't get caught right away, or even if they have barbecue and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's situational. It's good, but it is situational. A lot of killers do run aura reading perks, at least in my experience, but yeah, nothing too crazy. And his other perk, I can't remember what it does, but I know it's not good. So yeah, I think C tier is pretty solid for him. All right, next we have Jane, who is probably F tier, honestly. Her gen perk is not that good, and that other perk where I don't know the name of her perk, sorry, other than head on, but the perks where they're like holding hands like that or whatever, not that good either. But head on, also not good at all, but it's really fun. So if you want to base it off fun, she could be S tier, but her perks aren't good. She's fun, head on is fun, but not that useful. Once you use it once, 90% of killers will realize, what to do against that, but she is fun. So I'd put her F tier, but head on I think is still more useful than anything Quentin or Ace brings. So yeah, I'd have her there. All right, next we have Ashley, who is probably the only person on both PC and console that I've never played or used their perks. I know what they do, but it might be the only person I've never actually used. But let's just go through it. Metal Man, not that good anymore. It's pretty mid tier. It's pretty situational as well. I know I'm saying that a lot, but that's how a lot of survivors are built, really. He has Flip Flop, which can be good paired with plenty of other perks, like Tenacity from Tap. But yeah, his perks overall are pretty decent. He also has Buckle Up, which I believe no, it didn't get nerfed, or did it? I don't know, but it's still good. So for me, I'd probably put let's see, because Buckle Up's really strong. I'd probably put him ahead of Dwight, just because Buckle Up's really good and Flip Flop is pretty good, and it's easy to make builds for that. I'd put him there. And Metal Man is not completely useless. It just is situational. You really have to go for those if you want to get those protection hits. Now we have Nancy. Sorry, I was about to blank. Ooh. Nancy is solid. Fixated is very good paired with Sprint Burst. Inner Strength is pretty good. Not that bad. A good way to heal yourself. And what's her other perk? I don't know. But those two, in my opinion, would probably land her under Claudette. Fixated is nice to see your scratch marks and stuff and to let you walk faster and cool down your endurance stuff. It's pretty nice. And then inner strength, I think, is just a good way to heal yourself. Say if you don't want to bring a med kit, like, okay, I could just go destroy a totem, hop in a locker for like 10, 15 seconds, and boom, I'm healed. So, yeah, I think she's pretty solid. She's a good character to pick up, but nothing too crazy. Right, next we have Steve, the man, the myth, the legend. Everybody loves Steve. But his perks, they're okay. The one where he could like pause when he was like near whatever, just completely wiped out by reassurance, which we'll get to later. Babysitter's not that good. What's the I forgot what it's called, but the one that lets him heal himself after getting unhooked. Yeah, he, in my opinion, is okay. There's just a lot of people that do his stuff better. So I'd put him at the bottom of C tier pretty much. His only unique perk is the one where he comes off the hook and is healed, but everything else is not really useful anymore. At least there's people that do his stuff better. So, but the reason I don't put him F tier is because they are still useful. Like his camaraderie perk, or however you say it, is still useful, but there's no point to run that when reassurance exists. So yeah, that's why he's C tier. There's just no point to run his stuff, but it can still be used. So I'm gonna put him C tier. All right, next we have Yui, who has any means necessary and I cannot think of anything else she has. Uh, yeah, I don't think she's that great either. Any means necessary is useful, but I'm gonna put her C tier as well, just because behind Steve, because I still think her other two perks aren't all that great, if I remember correctly. Because no, she has not boil over, breakout. So she'd probably be higher than Steve, and I'd put her probably top of C tier because breakout's not really that great, but it can be paired with, like, say if you have everybody's running boil over and breakout, as long as you stick in twos, I mean, you're most likely not going to get hooked. So yeah, it can be paired well with some good builds, I would say, and obviously any means necessary is good. You could pick up thrown down pallets, so I'd put her C tier, but she's pretty situational as well. Yeah, you're gonna hear that a lot. I am sorry. But yeah, let's just continue. Next, we have Zarina, who has For the People, Red Herring, and the Record. And in my opinion, she is S tier. I don't think she's as good as Meg, but she's really good. For the People is very solid. Obviously, you could pick somebody up in a second at a cost of your health state. And that's very good. That's very good, especially if the killer's trying to slug or something. You get someone up and you're good. It's just very good no matter what. And I think you can use it multiple times if I'm not mistaken, which is good. Off the Record is really, really solid. Really good perk. For like a whole minute after you get on hook, I believe you make no noise and don't leave scratch marks. I'm not 100% sure on that part, but I know for a fact you have endurance for a whole minute until you decide to do something. So that is great. S tier is perfect for Zarina. Also, Red Herring, I should talk about. It's not the best perk, but it can be used for funny stuff, which is what I use it for more than anything. Like pair it with Blast Mine, it's pretty funny. But more than anything, it can be used as a distraction. And obviously, against like good killers, they might not care. But it can still be useful. It's pretty bad, but it still has its moment. That's why I put her S tier. All of her perks are viable in some way. So yeah, I think she's deserving of that spot. All right, next we have Cheryl, who is completely fallen off. I mean, she was never on to begin with. She was never anything crazy. The Soul Guard is almost useless to run now, honestly. Why run Soul Guard when you could run Buckle Up and stuff, and Blood Pact as well? Just not that good. I think her perks. I think she's similar to Steve. I would put her ahead of Steve because I think her perks are more useful than Steve. But she's the same thing. A lot of people just do what she does better. So yeah, no point to really run Cheryl. She can pick herself up with Soul Guard, but yeah, I don't think it's all that useful. It's like No Mither. You could pick yourself up with No Mither, but I don't know. Maybe she'd be ahead of David. I could put her ahead of David. Maybe ahead of Jeff, but that's as far as I'd go for Cheryl. She's just not very. All right, next we have Felix, who, in my opinion, as well, got to be one of the most boring characters to run in terms of perks, and not that good. He's not that good at all. I only remember what one of his perks does after prestiging him and getting adept with him. I only ever used one of his perks, so clearly not that good. But I know he can regenerate items and stuff. So for that, I'd probably put him at the top of F tier because I mean that's useful, especially if you have like a flashlight or something or a toolbox that you want to use again. Sure, or a med kit you want to heal yourself again. Sure, but not that great. All right, next we have Elodie, who honestly is very hard to remember. She's not boring, but she came out at a time where I think the game just wasn't great, at least in my opinion. Not play much when Elodie came out, but I do remember at least two of her perks. No, I remember all of her perks. She has Deception, I believe that's what it's called, where you can pretend to open a locker, which is fun. Not all that useful. It's a good distraction, and it's pretty funny paired with Head On, but not that great. Next, we have I forgot what it's called, but when your wiggle is halfway filled, you can throw down a pallet, which is pretty useful and is very well paired with other things like flip flop, like tenacity. Very good. And then she has, I think it's called appraisal, where she could rummage through a chest after somebody searched it. It's okay. That one's okay. Because how often are you really searching through a chest? But Yeah, her other two are pretty solid, I would say, or not her other two, just her one. It's called Power Struggle. That's what's called. Power Struggle is pretty solid, but everything else is not that great. I'd put her above Tap. Her other two have some uses, but Deception's really not that great, and Appraisal's kind of pointless. Just bring an item, just put stuff in your Blood Web and get items. Kind of pointless. But she's pretty fun with Deception and with Power Struggle, so I'd have her C tier because Power Struggle is pretty viable, but the other two really aren't. All right, next we have Yunjin Lee, who has Smash Hit, which may be one of the worst endurance perks, but it's still an endurance perk, so it's still decent. But yeah, you have to stun a killer with a pallet, and you get like super speed. She has this other one. I can't remember what it's called. I know it has a long name, but basically, if someone gets hit near her, she makes no noise, no scratch marks, no blood for like 16 seconds, which is situational and doesn't really matter because it's not like they're going to hit somebody and then just go for you. Majority of the time, sometimes they do, but it's pretty rare. And then she has Fast Track, which in my opinion is her best perk. And it is very useful for gen builds and it's very good with hyper focus. And I'm not trying to lean any sort of way towards this stuff, but yeah, you'll see. In my opinion, she's very solid. That one perk is still just situational, but Smash Hit is good and Fast Track is really good. So I'd probably put her bottom A tier because she's definitely better than Claudette. Fast Track is going to be a lot more useful, even when you're not running a Gen rushing build, but you do want to run it with that because that it will go insanely quick. I mean, not going to go through the full build, but I ran Fast Track on some Gen builds and finished Gens in like 30 seconds before. I mean, it is so quick. And Smash Hit's okay. I mean, it's an exhaustion perk. Any exhaustion perk is good to have, but hers is probably the worst, especially if killers don't really like to run through the pallet. Like they respect it too much. They don't want to swing through. So, yeah, I'd probably put her bottom A tier. She's still good, in my opinion. All right, next we have Jill, who is pretty bad, honestly. I'd put her up probably below Jane. She doesn't have a single perk that's good. She has one where she comes off the hook, she's halfway healed, and she has Blast Mine, which is really fun, but not that good. And I can't remember her other one. I believe it has something to do with gens as well, but not that good. But basically, Blast Mine's fun because you could put a flashbang on a generator. But other than that, yeah, she's fun, just not good. All right, moving on. We have Leon, who is in a similar boat. He has Flashbang. He has Rookie Spirit, which is awful, and he has Bite the Bullet, which is decent. So Flashbang is again a fun perk, but the flashbangs are not as good as like a flashlight or something. But at least you could carry that around. So in my opinion, it's more useful than Blast Mine. Not quite as fun, but it's more useful. Rookie Spirit is really bad. Just shows you regressing generators after you hit 3 skill checks. Who cares, And then you have Bite the Bullet, which is pretty good when you're healing somebody. There's no noise being made. So I would put him. I'd probably put him behind Elodie. Honestly, he like Rookie Spirit is trash. It's terrible. Bite the Bullet is decent. I don't know if I'd ever run it. It doesn't really matter most of the time. Sometimes it can, but not that big of a deal to run that. And Flashbang is just a better Blast Mine, pretty much, because you carry it around with you, but not a guaranteed flash as well. But still useful. Leon's tough to rank because I don't ever feel the need to run any of his perks, but they can be used and they are fun. All right, next we have Michaela, who also at one point I believe was the best survivor in the game. And boy, I loved playing as her when she came out. She was really fun to play as. The boons were so good, and now they're so bad. They are so bad. Hers got nerfed to the ground because hers especially were really really good. So for Michaela, I think it's very easily C tier, but I would probably put her. She still is pretty solid, honestly. Actually, I'm gonna put her bottom B tier because she has 2 boons. I can't remember what one of them does. I get them all confused, but she has Circle of Healing, which You can no longer self heal yourself in that, but the healing speed is really, really fast, so it still is useful. You have to run it with other boons and stuff. And I believe her other boon is the one where you don't leave scratch marks, but I could be incorrect on that. And her other perk is clairvoyance, which lets her like see stuff, if I remember correctly, like chest and stuff or something like that. Doesn't really matter, but it's useful now because if you use that perk, you can window tech, which the only other way you can do that is if you have a map. So that brings that perk some value in terms of looping. So I'd probably keep her B tier. I think that's solid because all of her perks now have just been completely nerfed to her being just mid. They're not terrible, they're still useful, they're just mid. All right, we're gonna move on to Jonah. When this guy came out is when the boon really got hit, and I can't remember. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have Dark Theory. His is the other one, the Exponential or whatever, or the Illumination. I can't remember. Um, but his boon, I just remember to not be that decent. He has Overcome, which is pretty solid. I can't remember his third perk, but Overcome is solid alone. So with that, I'd I'd probably say no, probably behind Jake with Michaela. Overcome is by far his best perk. Basically, when you get hit, it gives you 2 more seconds of haste, which is nice. And his other perk, I can't remember which one it is. I don't remember what his boon does, and the other perk I can't remember for some reason. I'm sorry. But yeah, just from what I remember and how using him, I put him B tier and don't really use any of his perks except Overcome because that is his best. But yeah, let's continue. Next, we have Yoichi, who probably has the worst boon in the game. Even when it came out, it was trash. He has boon Dark Theory that gives you like 2% extra haste, which just doesn't help at all, honestly. It's pretty bad. He has Parental Guidance, which is pretty decent, and his other perk, I can't remember the name of it, but is not that good. So, in my opinion, I think he would go C tier, probably behind Tap. It's not very good, honestly. That's the thing about survivors, though. Like on their own, most of them are not very good. Like you see, this is a very bottom heavy list because you have to mix and match them. F tier, the reason why F tier is here is because it's almost impossible to get a good build out of their perks. I mean, you can, but it's not useful. Like C tier, like Tap, you can make some good builds with his perks, but in general, they're not that good. S tier are the only people where I'd say if you run all three of their perks, they are actually useful. And as you go down like A tier, it's very similar. They just fall off more and more. But yeah, survivors are very dependent on building within their perks. Obviously, killers do the same thing, but their ability also helps a lot. But survivors, it is fully dependent on perks. So yeah. Next we have, I forgot her name. I think it's Haiti. Hattie. I don't remember. Her perks have just been really bad. I put her under Quentin. Actually, I'm putting her under Ace. Not a single perk. I don't remember a single perk. I've used her on both PC and console, and I've got her up. Her perks are just bad. There's not a single perk she has that's worth running. I'm gonna just put her there. There's nothing good about her, honestly. Her perks are so bad. I just forget she's even in the game. I can't even remember her name. I don't know if it is Haiti or Hattie, however you say it. I don't even know if that's her name. Just not very good. All right, next we have Ada, who is also trash. I'd put her ahead of Ace, but she's terrible. I mean, she has nothing good going for her. Wiretap is trash. The perk with the slippers is trash. Her other perk is trash. None of them are good, honestly. F tier, just pretty simple. Now she looks cool, but that's pretty much it. All right, next we have Rebecca, who is kind of in the meta right now, and I think she always will be. So for that, I kind of want to put her S tier. I could totally see like A tier somewhere down here, but I also am very biased. She has Hyper Focus, which is one of the best perks in the game, especially if you're doing gens. I mean, Hyper Focus is so valuable. It is crazy how strong it is. Obviously, you have to be good to use it, but paired with other things, it just makes it so good. And then she has Reassurance, which is good as well. If someone's on the hook, you can pause their timer. It's pretty long too. I think it's like 45 seconds. It's pause, which is great. Yeah, her other perk is not that great. I believe it has something to do with healing, but that perk is pretty useless. But the other two are just so strong and so easy to use. I think she has to be S tier, and they're always going to be that way. Reassurance might get nerfed, but I don't think they'll ever nerf Hyper Focus. It takes a lot of skill and it takes other perks to make it work. but so many perks can work with it. It's pretty easy and simple. All right, next we have Vittorio, who is not that good. But I'd probably put him top of C tier because especially with the gen meta right now, or at least that's what I believe it is, because the gen rushing right now is kind of crazy with hyper focus and all these other perks. He is decent because one of his perks allows when you hit a great skill check, you can see the aura of the killer, and his other two perks are pretty bad. Now that perk is really solid, especially paired with all these other stuff. Because hyper focus, you have to hit great skill checks. Stakeout converts to great skill checks, and then obviously fast track hit a great skill check. Like you're getting everything in one. You can complete a gen and know where the killer is to help out whoever's being looped, or to just get information for yourself. So that perk is strong, but his other two are not really useful. I'd put him top of C tier. All right, next we have Thalita Lyra, who I don't. I'm trying to think of any of the perks she has. I can't think of one. Um. All right, let's pull up Thalita. I swear she had good perks, but not like crazy good perks. But let's just see. Thalita Lyra perks. Let's see. Unique perks. Okay, she has cut loose. All right, I'm remembering now. She's cut loose, which is okay, but it's not really all that strong because you can't really pair that with life because it's the second rush action. So not really anything crazy. As long as I am thinking, is it not the second one? Oh, is it? Okay, after performing a rush vault and chase, suppresses. Okay, so you do have to perform two, pretty much. Um, it's okay, but you can't really pair it with life, so I don't think it's all that useful. I mean, it's not bad to run on its own, but you could just run quick and quiet, so I don't really see the point of running this, honestly. Friendly competition is not very good. There's just no point to really run that. Prove thyself is a whole lot better, and with the gen perks that we just talked about, like hyper focus, yeah, no point. Power teamwork as well, just not that good. Yeah, the leader is okay. I would put her probably below Vittor. Actually, I'd probably put her below Elodie. She is situational with almost all three of her perks, but they can be used. There's just ones that do it better, in my opinion. Actually, I think I'll move her down underneath Ab. Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, we have Renato, who I remember correctly has two trash perks and then one pretty strong perk, which is background player. Now, background player is being changed. I don't know if it's being buffed or nerfed yet, but I saw it was getting a big change. So I'm kind of scared to see what that is. But as of now, background player alone, I think puts Renato probably probably right there because his saving capability is so strong. I mean, it's ridiculous. It is as soon as someone gets picked up, it becomes active, and you get 200% speed. I mean, that is ridiculous. I mean, you can get flashlight saves, sabos. It's so good, so good. But his other two perks are not that strong, so I'd probably have him there because that perk is really good, but his other two aren't. So I think that's really solid placement. Should he move up? Let's. Yeah, actually, because I think alone his is probably better than like that perk alone is probably better than all of Tab, Bill, Nia, and Jake. So yeah, I'd keep him there. I wouldn't put him above Claudette or Nancy, but yeah, he's solid. All right, next we have Soma, who is not very good at all. Um, I know he has one perk that's okay, but I just can't. I just don't remember. I'm just gonna put Soma's one of those characters as well, like Ada, were just not very good. Put him below Ada. Just don't remember. Actually, I'm gonna put him with Patty Girl because played Soma and I don't know what any of his perks do. And that's kind of crazy coming from a Survivor player who I play Survivor for hours upon end every update, and Soma just has nothing to bring to the table. So yeah, he'll stay there. All right, we have Nicolas Cage, who has pretty much three meme perks. He has dramaturgy, which pretty much is a 50-50 on if you get something good or bad. It's pretty funny. And then you have I forgot what the perk's called, but when you scream in the killer's terror radius, which is funny as well. Not really all that useful, but it's funny. And then you have plot twist, which is also funny. You could just down yourself, but it is actually pretty useful. Now, although his perks are kind of troll perks, I think he's pretty strong. I would probably put Nicolas Cage above Jin Lee. Plot twist is really good, and that one is not luck dependent on like dramaturgy, but that one's funny and can help you out no matter what. So I'd still have him up there because two of his perks are really solid, and the other one's funny. So he has fun mixed with good. He's not like crazy strong or anything, but plot twist is actually pretty a really good perk, and dramaturgy as well is actually pretty solid. The screaming one's just pretty funny. So yeah, I think I have him A tier is pretty solid. All right, next we have Ellen Ripley, who probably has some of the worst perks in the game. Actually, I say that not really, but she has one of her perks is like arguably the worst perk in the game. But then she has that mind perk she can put on. I would say she's probably probably right above Cheryl. She's not very good at all. They tend not to make licensed people that good just because people have to pay real money for that. But obviously, there's some exceptions like Rebecca, Ash, Cage. Yeah, but most licensed people end up not being good. As you can see, there's a lot of licensed people down here, like Leon, Tap, Yoichi, Ellen, Cheryl, Steve. Yeah, there's a lot. Lori, Jill, Quentin, Ada, Soma. Yeah, and that's going to be no exception for Alan Wake. I believe all three of his perks are terrible as well. I don't think he has a single perk that's worth running. So yeah, bad, bad. Next we have Sable, who's pretty situational as well. She relies a lot on the basement, and I think that puts her just above Victorio. She's very situational. Her perks just kind of aren't that good. They're pretty slow as well, and it really depends. You have to play around the basement quite a lot, and I don't think that really equates to success when it comes to things, but it can be used correctly. But yeah, she's just not that good. Then we have the new people who I'm not going to rank because I haven't played with them yet. And so I don't think it's fair for me to put them out here. Even though I know what I remember what two of their perks do, but not the third one. And I remember more of their perks than I do half the people I've played and prestiged, but I don't think it's fair to rank her because I haven't seen how they actually work. I base these not only off what they're possible, like I don't really like to base things off capability. I base things on how they actually work uh most of the time. So in terms of like everything. Yeah, you see what I'm talking about if you watch my killer video, but in this one, very simple. It's all just perks. And I think there's some spots where people disagree, and I understand that. But I think in terms S through B tier, these are definitely the survivors you should be getting up first. Everybody else is just either for fun or just because you have no one else to get up. S through B is probably where you're going to find the most useful perks. C tier, you're pretty much only going to find one perk from each of these people that are useful. So yeah, an F tier, I wouldn't get those people up unless if you're done with everybody else or you just don't care. Now, I hope you enjoy. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, and if you want to see more Dead by Daylight or tier list content, just leave a comment below what you want me to do next. But yeah, hope you enjoyed.